No person in the United States
shall, on the ground of race, color,
or national origin,
be excluded from participation in,
be denied the benefits of,
or be subjected to discrimination
under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance.
Hello, I'm Jim Vance. Decades have passed since the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial here in Washington, D.C. But discrimination is still a problem in these United States. And discrimination prohibited by Title VI can be among the most difficult, yet important to recognize and understand. It means that all people in this country are entitled to equal treatment by federally funded programs or services, be they police, parks and recreation, education, healthcare, transportation, or anything else. It was President Lyndon Johnson who signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. At the time, many people called it the most important piece of civil rights legislation since the Emancipation Proclamation outlawed slavery about 100 years earlier. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 aimed to end discrimination based on race, color, or national origin. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act specifically focuses on programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance, often in the form of grants. The goal of Title VI is voluntary compliance, and recipients must be given opportunities to voluntarily comply when violations are found. But if that cannot be achieved, federal financial assistance may be withdrawn. And the top priority is preventing discrimination in the first place. But to do that, you must understand the requirements of Title VI. While in some cases the discrimination is against an entire group of people, in other cases it targets an individual. Let's look at the case of Mr. Michael Burley.
Mr. McSherry, look, I've got to go. I've been pushing you to all the local accounting firms, and I'm sure something will pan out. Hi. Who did you say you were?
we spoke on the phone a couple of days ago. I'm Michael Burley, the civil engineer who just moved to town.
Oh, yes, I remember you. Said you had a degree from Stanford.
That's me. Graduated top of the class, 1979.
Do you have any proof of that with you?
Well, no. I could get you proof, though. My word is good, let me assure you.
Mr. Burley, I don't doubt your credibility. It's just that I have to make sure that the resumes I submit to my clients are accurate. Now, may I see yours?
Here you are.
Looks like you moved around a lot.
Well, it's a sacrifice I've made in order to help my wife further her career. I've always held my jobs once I obtained them, though.
It's still very hard to recommend a candidate who's never held one job for longer than, what do we have here? 4 years.
There's a bright side to it. All that moving around has given me lots of experience in other forms of engineering.
I'll see what I can do.
Well, thank you so much for seeing me. Hi, Joanna. Michael Burley here. It's been 3 weeks since we last talked. Back then, you said you hadn't found a position for which to submit my resume.
Hold on, let me get your file. Nope, nothing yet.
But I don't understand what the holdup is. You serve a large area, and I told you that I'm willing to commute. Surely there must be some job that I'm at least qualified to apply for.
So far, nothing matches your experience and qualifications.
Well, what about that Lansbury Bridge project I told you I'd heard about? They're hiring a civil engineer. You said that job was being filled internally. I looked in the newspaper yesterday, and it was being advertised. I called over there. They tell me they've reviewed several applications from your employment office, and I wasn't one of them.
Mr. Burley, I only submit resumes for people whom I think are qualified.
But this is ridiculous. I have more than 8 years' experience designing bridges.
Mr. Burley, if you're that desperate to work, I've got some construction foreman positions I could recommend you for.
In fact, Michael Burley is qualified for the civil engineering position involving the construction of the Lansbury Bridge. He has more experience than 3 of the applicants Joanna sent over for the job. All the applicants Joanna sent to the company hiring a civil engineer were white.
Construction foreman? I don't think so. I sense something really wrong here, and I'm going to file a discrimination complaint.
Mr. Burley was correct. He was experiencing intentional discrimination or disparate treatment when his application was intentionally and unjustifiably treated differently by Joanna. Title VI prohibits retaliation, just as it prohibits discrimination. As we mentioned earlier, sometimes an entire community can be a victim of discrimination. Often, violations involve what would seem to be innocuous locations, such as your community's parks. Take a look at the houses in the affluent Sunnyvale side of town. They're big, with big yards. Now, here are the homes in the Latino neighborhoods. They are row houses, very tightly packed. So, block for block, you have a lot more people living in the minority community. So the parks get a lot more use. For that reason, it's more likely the equipment will be in poor condition and in need of more frequent repairs. Let's look at the case of Mrs. Xuan Lui. She is a member of a substantial Chinese community being served by her local police department. She's coming to police today after she discovered her house was ransacked.
警官，请帮助我，我不知道该怎么办。我刚回到家就发现家已经被抢劫了，所有的东西都被偷走
Do you
了。
speak English?
我只会讲中文，我们全家刚到美国2个多月，我们
Hold on. Do you have a friend that speaks English? I need English.
no English，我只会讲中文。
Police services are vital to all people in this
Show
country,
this
not just
to
those who
someone
speak English.
who speaks
In this
English.
case, the officer
Okay?
tried
Come
to
back
work with Mrs.
tomorrow.
Yi, but he
Okay?
couldn't communicate
All right.
with her.
Good luck.
Ultimately, he denied her a service and may have violated Title VI. Let's take a look at how this scenario could have played out had proper LEP guidelines been in place at the police
English
station.
no
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Okay. Yeah, Captain Carlson, Officer Johnson down here. I have a woman that doesn't speak a word of English. She picked the Mandarin I Speak card. Is Officer Wang around to translate? He's not up there. Okay, no, I'll use the phone company's translation service. Yeah, our police department has a contract with them.
Language line, how can I help you?
Yeah, I have a woman here that I believe speaks Mandarin Chinese. I'm gonna put her on the line.
Just a moment, please. 好的，女士，我会向警官解释你的情况，他会帮助你的。让我和他通话。
我需要警官的帮助，我的家被抢劫了，所有的东西都被抢光了，我的钱和我的首饰，我只离家了一会儿。
和他通电话。Officer, this woman says her house has been robbed. It sounds pretty serious.
Let's look at what went right this time. First, the officer was able to look at the police station's LEP guidelines, posted right at his place of work. Also, the officer was familiar with the community he serves. In this instance, the police department serves a large Chinese population, so it had hired a Chinese-speaking staff member. But when that staff member wasn't present,
Okay.
Officer Johnson knew he had a plan B. He could call his telephone company's
我会向
translation
警
service
官解释你。
because he knew that the police department had a contract with
我
them.
明白。
And finally, the police station had vital documents translated into the
Okay,
woman's
okay.
language.
All right.
The way agencies plan to handle people with limited English proficiency depends on 4 factors. 1. The number or proportion of people with limited English proficiency served in the service population. 2. The frequency with which the LEP individuals come in contact with the program. 3. The importance of the service provided by the program. And 4. The resources available to the participant. Most importantly, any recipient of federal funds must act as its own watchdog, carefully monitoring for possible violations. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is now and will continue to be an important piece of the foundation upon which we are building a better America. Title VI is a critical part of that law. For more information, you can contact the Justice Department at the toll-free numbers you see on the screen. Remember, all people have the right to programs and services that will enrich their lives. Don't let their race, color, or national origin stand in the way.